Soldiers from wars both old and new march down city streets. Flags hang from homes, businesses, even car antennas. Ceremonies remember those who dutifully served their nation. It's Veterans Day, or Remembrance Day, as it's known in much of the world, a time to honor members of the armed forces. And it all began in a railroad car with a document to end the war to end all wars. World War I, also known as the Great War, shocked the global community with its unprecedented toll in human life. Untold millions were killed. Germany was running low on manpower and supplies, so they agreed to sign an armistice, or truce, in the French commander Ferdinand Foch's private rail car. On the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, all was quiet on the Western Front. The fighting had ended. Exactly 1 year later, President Woodrow Wilson decreed that Americans should observe a moment of silence at 11 a.m. to remember the armistice and to embrace the peace. Other Allied nations commemorated the peaceful anniversary as well. In England and Canada, citizens wore paper poppies. Poppies had become a symbol of the armistice. The poem Flanders Field described a one-time battlefield. In Flanders Field, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row. In America, the nation's first unknown soldier was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery on Armistice Day, 1921. He was a casualty of the Great War. Since that first memorial, other unknown soldiers from America's wars have been interred in the tomb. And it's become tradition for the president or one of his representatives to lay a wreath on the monument every November 11th. A resolution was passed in 1926 inviting all Americans to remember Armistice Day and the soldiers who fought so hard for peace. The idea caught on. By 1938, the day was marked with so many ceremonies and parades, Congress made it a legal holiday, giving people the day off work. After World War II and the Korean War, Americans wanted to open up the holiday to include not just World War I veterans, but all who served in combat. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower, a World War II vet himself, legally changed the U.S. Armistice Day to Veterans Day, honoring those who served in all American wars. For a brief time, starting in 1971, Congress moved the holiday to the fourth Monday in October, giving Americans a three-day weekend. But most people rejected the idea. The traditional date of November 11th, the anniversary of the Great War's ceasefire, was too historically important to forget. President Ford reversed the law in 1975, returning Veterans Day back to its rightful date. Over the decades, the holiday has changed with the times. Originally, it was a call for world peace. Then in the U.S., it became a day to remember war veterans. Today, Veterans Day is set aside to honor not just those who served in war, but also those who have served their nation in peace.
Hi, I'm Grace, a senior here at Center Grove High School, and as a part of our Veterans Day program, I have the opportunity to introduce to you my friend and former Marine, Todd Sanders, and his wife, also former Marine, Maura Sanders. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Grace.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you guys for joining us today and giving us a little insight on your view and perspective. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to communicate with us.
Excellent.
No
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes, so let's just jump right into it. If you guys could tell me a little bit about your military experience, that'd be great.
Yeah. Maura, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I graduated high school and did a year at the United States Naval Academy prep school. I was a recruited athlete, so I spent that year kind of figuring out how to balance school and sports. I graduated from there and immediately started 4 years at the United States Naval Academy, where I was an oceanography major and an engineering minor. I played basketball for a little while there and was lucky enough to be selected into the Marine Corps upon graduation. I graduated and was commissioned a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps and reported to Quantico, Virginia to start my training. unfortunately, while I was there, I got hurt and I ended up receiving a medical discharge about a year later. And luckily was able to continue on with some of my service as a Department of Defense civilian Marine, which worked great because Todd continued on in his military career.
Yeah. Yeah. So much like Maura, I was a year ahead of Maura and was recruited out of high school to play football at the academy, and so had the opportunity to go to the prep school like Maura did, which was actually a really, really important part. It allowed me to grow up some more. It allowed me to really get my schoolwork spot on, and it helped me, I think, really transition into how intense it was at school. Went down and then spent 4 years at school. Like Maura, got the chance to commission into the Marine Corps. So spent about 17 years in the Marine Corps, and started out in Hawaii in the infantry. Loved the experience there in the Pacific. Went to grad school. I did a tour using my grad school degree down in Georgia in supply chain and logistics, which was awesome. Maura that was a time when she was a civilian Marine, and we worked together, which was a blast. I then went back to the infantry, took a task force over to Iraq for about 8 months, which was awesome. The Marines were outstanding. The mission was great, and it was a good time. It was a hard time in Iraq, but it was a good time where Iraq was really getting stable and was really kind of getting their feet under themselves from a political standpoint. Came back from that, then ended up getting the opportunity to go over to Italy. So took the family over to Europe, and I spent a lot of time there as a international military advisor and then as an operational planner, and had the opportunity to advise countries like Ukraine and Israel, Lebanon, and also was one of the planners for the Liberation of Libya operation. So spent time on that task force, transferred over to the NATO task force to finish that mission out. So it was just a phenomenal time. And after all of that said, it's probably a good time to retire. So had the opportunity to retire a couple of years early and start our civilian life.
That's awesome. Thank you guys again for your service. But what made you kind of decide that military was the route for you?
I think I get asked this question a lot. I think I was born into wanting to do that. From a very young age, service was something I just felt was my destiny. As a fourth grader, I did write a letter to my congressman saying, "Hey, sir, I want to go to the Air Force Academy. What do I need to do in order to get there?" And he graciously wrote me back and said, school, do very well in school, volunteer, as many leadership opportunities as possible. And it worked out. Of course, I didn't go to the Air Force Academy. I went go Navy, beat Army. But, just from a very young age, I just felt a calling towards service.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely grew up in that service mentality. I spent a lot of time as a Boy Scout. I went to parochial school, to Catholic school. We had a lot of like service and volunteer events. And those kind of solidified in my mind this idea of being able to give back more. So all of that combined together, and the attractiveness of, I kind of always wanted to be a Marine. I always wanted to do like run around the woods and do stuff like that. So all of that was just really attractive to me. So when the opportunity came along and I was able to get into the academy and then get into the Marine Corps, I just couldn't turn it back.
I appreciate your guys' perspective on that. So from that point, where would you give advice to a senior in high school thinking about joining the military?
You want to start with that one, Todd?
Yeah, definitely. So a couple of different things I'd say. The first one is that when you commit to go into the military, it's a commitment that you're going to be doing something that's much bigger than yourself. And every service has their kind of different pitch that they make, and many of them will say like all the great benefits and the training and the stability and all these things that you can get. And we talked about this, like you guys as Keith's son and daughter, and then our girls, they've really learned this, that in the Marine Corps it is much very much like one of the popular signs they used to have was, "We didn't promise you a rose garden." And so it's very much like that. It was the intent to get you an opportunity to be a Marine and do something that not everybody could do. So whatever service you find, whatever service you're interested in, recognize that aspect of service and why it is called that, because that's a really important thing. And then I think the second thing that I recommend to people as they get ready to get into the service, or they say, I want to do a tour or a career in the service, is have a plan on the back end, that you can say, I want to use this experience. I want to gain this development. I want to grow as this person so that I can do something incredible on the back end. Your service time will end, and that should not be the end of you giving back to people. So that it should be like really the catapult for you to go forward.
I agree with what Todd says. At the end of the day, it is service before self. You're putting everybody before you, and you're making choices that will affect everybody around you, everybody that you're in charge of, everybody that you work with, your family. And you just have to have a real deep understanding of what that commitment actually means.
I appreciate you guys sharing some advice and your stories. Now, we have a male and female Marine here, so I have to ask, which one's tougher?
Of course I'm tough. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, no, it's been amazing to, at the time that we were in the Marine Corps especially, there was so much integration going on. And in many ways, the Marine Corps was like the perfect place for that integration to happen, because at the end of the day, the thing that counted the most was that you had the title Marine, and nothing else really mattered. So it was the ability to bring people together and work together to accomplish a mission. When I was in Iraq, I actually had a squad of women Marines that were attached to me that were phenomenal, right? And they gave us a capability to interact with the populace that we just couldn't do because we were guys and because of the strict rules over there. And they were wonderful, and some of them were tiny, and they were carrying these 100-pound, sets of kit and stuff. And did that stink for them? Like, yeah. And was it hard? Yeah. And did it hold them back? Maybe. But from our point of view, all of us had strengths and weaknesses. So we didn't let anybody fail just because they were carrying, a ton of weight or something like that. It was all about how can we come together to work together to accomplish something better.
All right. Well, thank you guys for, again, serving our country, providing us your perspective and advice. I just want to say thank you guys again.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Awesome,
Thanks,
Grace. Thank you. Hoorah.
Hoorah.